The vast landscape of Big Sky, Montana, stretched out like a living painting. Rolling hills, snow-capped mountains in the distance, and endless skies. It was breathtaking, a place where people came to find peace, adventure, or in some cases themselves. For Paisley Sheridan, a driven, ambitious woman from the bustling city of Los Angeles, it was a place to escape. Burned out from her high-pressure career in fashion marketing, she needed a break, a moment to breathe, and Big Sky seemed like the perfect place to do that. Paisley had rented a small cabin on the edge of town, surrounded by towering pine trees and the gentle rush of a nearby creek. She planned to spend her days hiking, reading, and most importantly, avoiding anything that reminded her of the stress she had left behind. But life has a funny way of throwing surprises into even the most carefully planned getaways. One afternoon, while exploring a local trail, Paisley's phone slipped from her hand and tumbled down a steep hill. She sighed in frustration, realizing that her carefully orchestrated escape from city life was quickly falling apart. Desperate, she scrambled down the hill, only to find herself stuck, her ankle twisting awkwardly in the process. Just as she began to panic, a shadow loomed over her. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a weathered cowboy hat crouched beside her, concern etched across his rugged face. "You all right there, ma'am?" he asked, his voice deep and calm. That was how Paisley first met Josh Wyatt, a local rancher born and raised in Big Sky. With a natural charm and easygoing nature, Josh was everything Paisley wasn't used to: grounded, kind, and completely at home in the wilderness. He carefully helped her back up the hill, insisting on driving her to the nearest clinic to have her ankle checked. As they drove, conversation flowed easily between them. Josh was intrigued by Paisley's big city lifestyle, while Paisley found herself fascinated by Josh's quiet, steady approach to life. The differences between them were glaring, but somehow, that only made their connection stronger. After her ankle was bandaged up, Paisley tried to thank Josh and insist that he didn't need to worry about her anymore. But Josh wasn't the type to leave someone in need, and despite her protests, he insisted on checking in on her the following day. At first, Paisley found Josh's attentiveness unnerving. She wasn't used to people going out of their way to be kind without expecting something in return. But as the days passed, Josh continued to show up, sometimes with groceries, other times with an offer to take her out to see more of Big Sky. At first, Paisley resisted. She had come to Montana to be alone, to recharge and find herself, not to make new friends or get involved with anyone. But there was something about Josh's quiet strength, his patience, and his easy smile that made her want to let her guard down. One day, as the two stood on the porch of her cabin, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and orange, Josh turned to her. "You know, Paisley, I can tell you're running from something. But out here, you don't have to run. You just have to breathe." His words hit Paisley harder than she expected. She realized that maybe she hadn't just come to Big Sky to escape her job. Maybe she had come to escape herself, the expectations she had placed on her own shoulders. In that moment, something shifted between them, an unspoken understanding that they were both searching for something, even if they didn't know what it was yet. As Paisley's ankle healed, so did her walls. She started spending more time with Josh, joining him on trips to his ranch, where she met his horses and learned more about his life. She discovered that Josh wasn't just a cowboy. He was a man who had faced his own struggles. He had lost his parents at a young age and had taken over the family ranch at just 18. He had built his life from the ground up, and though it hadn't been easy, he had never given up. Their conversations grew deeper as they shared their dreams, their fears, and the paths that had led them to this point in their lives. Paisley talked about the pressure she had felt in the city, the constant need to prove herself, and how it had slowly eaten away at her happiness. Josh listened without judgment, offering words of wisdom that seemed far beyond his years. One evening, after a long day of riding and tending to the horses, Josh invited Paisley to a local town dance. It was the kind of small-town event Paisley had only seen in movies. Twinkling fairy lights, a live band playing country music, and couples dancing beneath the stars. At first, Paisley was hesitant, feeling out of place among the locals. But Josh pulled her onto the dance floor, and soon she found herself laughing, spinning in his arms as the music carried them away. That night, As they stood under the Montana sky, stars twinkling above them, Josh gently took Paisley's hand. "I've been waiting a long time for someone like you to come along," he whispered, his voice full of sincerity. Paisley's heart raced. She hadn't expected to find love here, in the middle of nowhere, but as she looked into Josh's eyes, she realized that maybe, just maybe, she had been looking for the wrong things all along. Though their connection was undeniable, Paisley and Josh couldn't ignore the differences between them. Paisley was a city girl at heart, used to fast-paced living and the convenience of urban life. Josh, on the other hand, was rooted in the simplicity of ranch life, where every day was a new adventure in the great outdoors. Paisley found herself torn. She had come to love the peace and beauty of Big Sky, the way the mountains seemed to watch over the town, the way the air smelled like pine and fresh snow. But could she really give up the life she had built in Los Angeles, the career she had worked so hard for? Josh, too, was facing his own internal battle. He cared deeply for Paisley, but he knew that asking her to stay in Big Sky was asking her to give up a part of herself. He didn't want to be the reason she walked away from her dreams. Their relationship became strained as they tried to figure out how to make things work. They both wanted to be together, but the question of how was looming over them like a storm cloud. One evening, after a heated argument about their future, Paisley retreated to her cabin, feeling more confused than ever. She loved Josh, but was love enough to bridge the gap between their two worlds? In the days that followed, Paisley threw herself into thinking about her future. She spent hours hiking through the trails around Big Sky, trying to clear her mind. Every step she took seemed to lead her further from the answer she was searching for, but one thing remained clear. She couldn't imagine her life without Josh. Finally, one night, as the snow began to fall gently outside her window, Paisley made her decision. She had spent too long chasing after things that didn't truly matter: status, success, approval. But here in Big Sky, she had found something real, something that filled her heart in a way that nothing else ever had. She drove to the ranch, her heart pounding in her chest, unsure of what Josh would say when she told him her decision. When she arrived, Josh was outside, his breath visible in the cold air, his eyes widening in surprise as he saw her. "I've been thinking," Paisley began, her voice shaking slightly, "and I realized that I've been looking for happiness in all the wrong places. It's not about where I live or what I do. It's about who I'm with. And Josh, I want to be with you." Josh's face broke into a wide smile, relief flooding his expression as he stepped forward and pulled her into his arms. "I've been waiting to hear you say that," he whispered, his voice full of love. Paisley woke up the morning after Josh's proposal with a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time: complete peace. It was the kind of peace that came from knowing that she had found the person she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. She lay in bed, the morning sun streaming through the cabin windows, listening to the soft sounds of the Montana wilderness outside. The moment felt perfect. Josh was already outside, tending to the horses as he did every morning, and Paisley knew that in just a few minutes, he'd come back inside with his usual smile and a steaming cup of coffee for her. And right on cue, the door creaked open, and Josh stepped inside, his face lighting up when he saw her awake. "Morning, city girl," he said softly, walking over to her with the coffee in hand. He sat on the edge of the bed and handed her the cup, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Morning, cowboy," she replied with a smile, her heart swelling with love as she looked at him. She sipped her coffee, her thoughts still swirling with the events of the previous evening. The stars, the snow, and Josh down on one knee. It had all felt like a dream, but it was real. He was hers, and she was his. As the weeks went by, Paisley and Josh fell into a rhythm of planning their life together. Paisley had started to split her time between Los Angeles and Big Sky, using her time in the city to wrap up her remaining projects and slowly wind down her career. She knew that her life was changing, that the fast-paced world she had once thrived in no longer held the same appeal. Josh, for his part, was patient. He understood that Paisley wasn't someone who could completely abandon her past, nor did he want her to. He loved her passion, her drive, and the way she could light up a room with her creative ideas. So, they began to build a life that could blend both their worlds. While Paisley and Josh were more in love than ever, the reality of trying to merge their two worlds began to take its toll. It wasn't easy maintaining a long-distance relationship, especially when one half of the couple was living in the hustle of Los Angeles and the other in the tranquility of Big Sky. The travel was exhausting, and there were times when Paisley wondered if it was all too much. Her career, which she was slowly phasing out, still had demands. She had clients to meet, deadlines to keep, and a reputation to uphold. Each time she returned to Los Angeles, it felt like stepping into a whirlwind of noise and pressure. The city streets, the meetings, the constant motion. It was everything she had once thrived on, but now it left her feeling drained and detached. The only thing that kept her going was the knowledge that Josh was waiting for her in Montana, his steady presence a reminder of the simpler life she was beginning to crave. Josh, too, found it difficult at times. He missed her terribly when she was gone, and though he never pressured her, he sometimes feared that the distance would eventually pull them apart. He knew Paisley was torn, that part of her loved the career she had built for herself, but he couldn't shake the feeling that their love might not be enough to keep her in Big Sky. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, Paisley called Josh from her hotel room in Los Angeles. Her voice trembled with frustration. "I don't know if I can do this anymore, Josh," she admitted. "I love you and I love Montana, but every time I come back here, it feels like I'm being pulled in two directions. I don't want to lose myself, but I also don't want to lose you." Josh listened quietly, his heart aching as he heard the strain in her voice. He wished he could be there with her, hold her, and remind her that everything would be okay. "Paisley," he said softly, "I don't need you to choose between your career and me. I just need you to be happy. We'll figure this out together." Paisley felt tears prick her eyes. She knew Josh meant every word, but the weight of the decision she faced was overwhelming. She loved him more than anything, but could she really walk away from the life she had built? Everything came to a head one afternoon when Paisley was in Los Angeles for what she promised would be one of her final projects. She was sitting in a boardroom, surrounded by her colleagues, but her mind was 1,000 miles away. She couldn't stop thinking about Josh, about his laugh, the way he smelled of fresh hay and leather, and how his eyes sparkled whenever they talked about the future. She realized in that moment that none of this mattered anymore. The contracts, the meetings, the endless hustle. It had all once been her dream, but now it felt like a cage. The realization hit her like a wave, and she excused herself from the meeting, walking out of the building and into the busy Los Angeles street. She stood on the sidewalk, her heart pounding as the noise of the city surrounded her. She knew what she had to do. Without a second thought, she pulled out her phone and called Josh. When he answered, she didn't waste a moment. "I'm done, Josh. I'm done with the city, with the career, with all of it. I want to come home." There was silence on the other end of the line, and for a moment, Paisley feared that she had made the wrong choice. But then she heard Josh's voice, full of warmth and love. "I've been waiting to hear you say that," he replied softly. "Come home, Paisley." Paisley returned to Big Sky with a new sense of purpose. She had made her choice, and though it wasn't easy walking away from her career, she knew in her heart that it was the right decision. Josh was waiting for her at the airport, his arms open wide as she ran into his embrace. "Welcome home," he whispered into her hair, holding her tightly. From that moment on, Paisley threw herself into life in Big Sky. She started helping Josh around the ranch, learning how to care for the horses and tend to the land. At first, it was a challenge. Paisley wasn't used to the physical demands of ranch life, but Josh was patient, teaching her everything he knew with a smile on his face. In time, Paisley began to feel at home in Montana. The wide open spaces, the fresh air, the peaceful rhythm of life, it was everything she had been searching for. And with Josh by her side, she knew she had found something truly special. A year after Paisley had made the decision to stay in Big Sky, life had never been better. The ranch was thriving, and Paisley had found her own way to contribute to their new life. She had started an online business, using her marketing skills to help local artisans and small businesses in Montana reach a wider audience. It was the perfect blend of her old career and her new life, and for the first time in years, Paisley felt truly fulfilled. One crisp autumn afternoon, As Paisley and Josh were riding their horses along one of the trails near their ranch, Josh suddenly pulled his horse to a stop. Paisley looked over at him, her brow furrowed in confusion. "What's wrong?" she asked. Josh dismounted and walked over to her, his eyes filled with love and something else, nervous excitement. "Nothing's wrong," he said softly, reaching into his pocket. "There's just something I've been meaning to do." Before Paisley could ask what he was talking about, Josh dropped to one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. "Paisley," he began, his voice trembling slightly. "I never thought I'd find someone like you. Someone who understands me, supports me, and loves me the way you do. I can't imagine spending the rest of my life without you by my side. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Paisley's eyes as she looked down at the man she loved more than anything in the world. She nodded, unable to speak, and Josh slipped the ring on her finger, his own eyes shining with emotion. They stood there, in the middle of the Montana wilderness, holding each other close as the sun began to set behind the mountains. It was the beginning of their forever, a life filled with love, adventure, and the kind of happiness that only comes when you find the person you're meant to be with. For Paisley and Josh, Big Sky wasn't just a place. It was home. Hope you enjoyed this story. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel. Your participation is essential so that we can continue to bring you more incredible stories. Share it with your friends to help our channel grow. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.